Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson. Welcome back to everyone who is already a subscriber to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews. I always try to have great interviews with MMA Fancast of local up-and-coming MMA talent. So please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. Always happy to have the former Division II National Wrestling Champ out of Fairmont State and now undefeated 3-0 amateur featherweight MMA fighter, Luke the Champ. Wait, it's Luke the Martian. Martin the Champ.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor.
Always incredible to have you back on the show. I've had the honor to interview you before you ever did MMA, to kind of get you in to doing MMA, which is really, really fantastic.
And my manager, Brandon, just hit me up and he was like, hey, man, I think I'll be able to get you on LFA, but I'll let you know. And I was like, yeah, man, whatever. So we were looking around at other dates, other fights. We were just kind of looking around, kind of shopping. And then Brandon hit me one day and he was like, hey, man, I found you a fight for LFA. The guy's tough. I think it'll be a good one for you. It'll be a good matchup. What do you think? And I was just immediately like, yeah, like I want to get in front of a crowd like that and at LFA and, try to get my name out there some more. I'm excited.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. You're coming off 3 wins, obviously, in a row, 2 finishes in a row. You're training. Your main full-time gym is Stout Pittsburgh. And you're training with an incredible MMA fighter who's a buddy of yours in Sniper Siebert, another Luke. So you're both Lucases, actually. So how has that journey been, training at Stout going? How's it still training with everybody at Stout, including Lucas the Sniper Siebert? And of course, now he is 2-0 as a pro, and he's basically about maybe a year and a half ahead of where you want to be just in development. So how's all that going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's great to see, how his journey is unfolding. And I'm just happy that I get to be a part of it. And all my training partners, Lucas, Anthony, Miguel, Josh Ramirez, all those guys, Max, everybody else, they're all making sure I'm ready to go. And I'm just excited for everybody. I'm excited to see what happens next for everybody. And I just, I appreciate them for making sure I'm ready to go.
And although it's still relatively early in your amateur career, and this is a big step, what do you kind of see as in maybe not a game plan because it's fight week, we don't want to give that away, but what are you kind of trying to see as far as rising to this challenge? I just looked him up. He's 4-0. We knew that. All rear naked choke wins, which to me kind of possibly emphasizes that he's a jiu-jitsu ground guy. You're obviously a very high-level wrestler, being a former Division II national champ and a former Division I wrestler. So kind of where do you see this matchup going, and kind of what would you expect from yourself coming up this Friday, making the trip up to New York for the LFA 189?
I'm pretty sure he's a purple belt.
Okay.
But I'm not really worried about him and what he's doing. I'm just worried about me. I'm focused on me and how I can, keep improving with every fight. And I think this is a good guy for me to go out there and make a statement on and that, I am getting better. And this is a good matchup though, but I'm just ready to run through him.
Well, it's a great mindset to have. We talked, the first time you're on the show, we talked a lot more about your national champion run, because obviously that's such a huge accomplishment. But one of the things you brought up when you were talking about that is always having the mindset, first in wrestling, now in MMA, that you want to take on the guys that have great records. Obviously in your champion run, you were not seeded to win the tournament. I think that was pretty pretty understandable. You had to come up and take people out that were expected to be maybe go a little bit farther in the tournament. So I personally think a 3-0, 4-0 matchup. I did just look at his record, and just like in wrestling, I think strength of opponent matters. Do you put any weight in the fact that his strength of opponents are pretty weak, and you've obviously taken on some opponents with more experience?
Um, like I said, I'm not super worried about what he's doing, but I think it does matter a little bit. But he did, even if they were scrubs, like he did, dispose of them like he was supposed to. So, I don't really give it a ton of weight, but I'm expecting him to come out there and try to win, and I'm not sure that he has felt that yet. He hasn't really felt anybody that's going to come out there and get in his face and try to win the fight. You know what I mean? And I'm coming out there and I'm going to put pressure on him and I'm going to be in his face and it's going to be a long fight for him. And he's going to, I don't know. He's gonna have some trouble in that regard, I think, because like I said, he hasn't had anybody that's gonna be in his face like I'm gonna be in his face. And I'm sure he's prepared for it. And I'm sure that his gym and coaches and everybody prepared him well, but there's only so much you can do. Um, at some point you're gonna find yourself in there by yourself and the cage is locked, nobody can help you in there. So like I said, I'm coming for him. I'm gonna be in his face, and we're gonna fight for the whole fight. So
And that's what makes you. And I'd say a lot of the stout fighters, of course. I'm also a big fan of the other Pittsburgh gyms, the Mat Factory and the Academy. And even though they're not technically in Pittsburgh, the Gorilla House, they're all great gyms. So for you, looking back, going into your fourth amateur fight, what aspect of MMA has been the most exciting? Because your brain, as a high level wrestler and a national champ, your brain obviously loves to solve like problems. And also, I've been watching a lot of the Olympics. Clearly, we're happy Olympics to everybody. And anybody that gets to the Olympics in any sport, could be badminton, could be a sport we've never heard of. Obviously, the big sports as well. They obviously have to kind of focus on getting better in every aspect. And clearly, coming over from wrestling, you're great at learning skills. So, what aspect of MMA has been the most exciting for you to learn to add on to an already great skill set?
I think if you're gonna reach like the top of any sport, like the Olympics or like the top of the UFC or whatever it is, if you're gonna be an elite upper echelon athlete, your brain just works a certain way. And I think if you're somebody like that, you're kind of a sponge. So when you're learning techniques and when you're picking things up and you're at practice, you're kind of trying to be a sponge and you're like just absorbing all the stuff that is getting thrown at you. But I think for me, lately, since my last fight, I've been doing, a lot of stand-up stuff. And I think that that's really like I've been kind of honed in on that for a little while now. But I'm still doing jujitsu and stuff like that too. So, you know, Coates, if you're listening to this, I'm not just striking, but
Yeah, well, of course, you're well-rounded. Always use that expression, well-rounded. I do know what you said, and I think that makes sense. To be at the top of any sport, you have to be a sponge. There's that humility, that they call it a learner's mindset, is what we're taught as coaches, to kind of emphasize a learner's mindset. And you see that. Like, I like to watch the breakdowns of Mighty Mouse. There's a great YouTube channel, which is his YouTube channel, where he and I think we've talked about this before, where he and Triple C broke down both of their fights. And it's just really great to see a former gold medalist at the Olympics, and I would say, one of the greatest champions UFC has ever had, being very like critical of their own. Like, oh man, there was a missed opportunity. Like, they're watching themselves compete at the highest level for a belt, and they split it. They both won and lost, and they're still willing to learn. And it's a great mindset to have, a learner's mindset. You mentioned the LFA kind of platform and crowd. One, as a flashback, I remember that your championship came when COVID was obviously interfering. So was there a crowd at your national championships? And then, depending on how you answer that, how do you respond to crowds, particularly if they're kind of against you? I don't know how big LFA is going to be crowd wise. I don't know if he's the homer and you're the guy coming in. I don't know, but how do you interact with the crowd? And what was the crowd like when you're going through the tournament? Did they even have a crowd?
So when I was at NCAs, there wasn't really a crowd, but everybody got their parents.
Oh,
Like everybody's that was at the tournament, their parents were there. So there was a little crowd, but at the same time, I knew that a lot of people were watching it on a stream. So I think that kind of helped me out a little bit. But um, in terms of like competing literally in front of a crowd, like in the crowd atmosphere, I've been doing that for a long time. I've been doing that since I could, since I started wrestling. So that's not a big deal for me. I think that I feed off of it pretty well. I think that it kind of gives me like a little bit of like extra swag. Like I'm a little bit more like gives me a good energy. I just like to compete and I like to show off a little bit. And I think that a big crowd is definitely helpful for me. And yeah, when I was in NCAs, it wasn't a big crowd, but I knew that there was a lot of people watching. Like I knew that uh like some like bars and restaurants and stuff at home had it on and like a lot of people that I knew were watching and I was just ready to compete and put on a show. So and I did that and NCAA finals match is a good example of it because I went out there and I ended up beating him like 12-5 or something like that. And I just I performed really well. And I feel like for me, I've always been able to perform at a high level in front of a good audience. So I hope that there's a ton of people at LFA because I'm not sure that he's been in that situation. So, and I've been doing that forever. So that only is going to play in my favor.
I'm sure it will. That's one of the things that's a transferable skill from wrestling or really any high level athletic competition will transfer that confidence and that performance under pressure. And I was going to make a joke about ping pong because ping pong's an Olympic sport. You talk about speed and pressure at the Olympic level. Anyhow, I don't think an Olympic ping pong champ would do well in MMA, but they would be used to the pressure at least. Um, uh, do you want to make a prediction going into this fight, or do you leave that kind of up for how it ends up turning out fight night?
If I had to make a prediction, I would predict uh me going forward, and that's it. Just going
Hawk
forward, and
smash, Hawk smash.
yeah,
Okay.
just going forward, and I'm predicting a good fight. I'm predicting, like I said earlier, I'm predicting him to come ready,
Yep.
and I hope he does. So I want a good one. Uh, I'm looking for a competitive one, so I'm ready to go.
Well, that's what's exciting, and I know I brought up Luke Siebert already, Lucas Siebert. I think that's one thing. Obviously, Mike Wilkins, nobody at the Stout Factory, man, Stout Pittsburgh. I combined two there. Nobody at Stout wants you to like or anybody to take easy fights. And I think what's kind of exciting is when you win Friday and you go to 4-0. There are no easy fights from there on out, and you wouldn't want it any other way, right? With your pedigree, with the fast track that you're on, that Lucas Siebert already showed, where he came right in, kind of did the same thing, right? Took big opponents all the way through, went from 1-0, 2-0, and then just started taking bigger and bigger guys all the way up to going pro. And I think that's kind of the mindset. Obviously, you have to have. Who do you want to thank going into this fight? Whether it be people personally, obviously any sponsors, anybody that's in your corner. Who do you want to thank coming into this fight?
Well, first I want to thank Will Morrill and Mike Wilkins for getting me ready to go and showing me the secret sauce. I want to thank my training partners, Lucas, Anthony, everybody at Stout that's day in, day out helping me get ready to go. I want to thank everybody that follows me and everybody that listens and everybody that is excited to see where I go going forward. And I want to thank LFA for bringing me out and my manager for getting it set up. And I'm just excited to put on a show, man. I hope everybody tunes into it and yeah, get tickets, come to New York. Let's go.
That's about as exciting as it gets. And since it's pretty rare for me to get somebody fight week, obviously it's really awesome. We tried to set this up a couple times. You're very kind. We've both been busy, so I appreciate you coming on. Uh, we'll end on this question. Usually I would end on the question you just answered, but because it's fight week, what does fight week feel like to you, and kind of what's the mindset of fight week for you? We're 4 or 5 days out.
For me, I think um for me it's kind of just like calibration. Like I'm just making sure that my body's ready and making sure that my mind's ready and just being grateful for the opportunity and yeah, just being grateful for everything and my gym and being grateful for my training partners and being grateful for the opportunity, really dialing in on my mindset and what my goals are. Just knowing that, the result is going to be what it's going to be, win or lose. The result is what it is. All that I can control is me, and I can control my attitude, and I can control, you know, my weight cut and everything else that goes into it. That's just what it is for me. Is just focusing on the things that I can directly control, and everything else is what it is, and just believing in myself and yeah, just visualizing being in the cage, visualizing the walkout, visualizing going up the steps, visualizing looking around when I'm in the cage, like all of that stuff in between rounds, like all of that stuff is just plays in my head a little bit and it gets me excited. Yeah, I get that like butterflies a little bit, and just reminds me that I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm just ready to get out there.
I know you're ready. I really am very grateful for you coming on the show. Fight week. It's super great. August 2nd for LFA 29 up there in New York. Either go in person or get the pay-per-view. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I know it's going to be wonderful to have you back on after the fight to talk all the way through it. And kind of what you said there is a very important, not only for athletes but also as a mental health counselor. I always like the expression control the controllables, in the sense that there's always, whether it's fight related, whether it's anxiety or depression related, there's always something that is within someone's control or influence. And then there's also the acceptance piece that you nailed. We like to call it radical acceptance. And radical acceptance in counseling isn't doing nothing. Radical acceptance is understanding that there's things that we can't control. We can accept those things. Anxiety usually focuses on things we can't control, and depression usually avoids the things we can control. So to deal with both, we accept the things we can't control and we control the things we can, dealing with both anxiety and depression. And obviously, in this case, in a sports uh, environment, it also keeps you focused and you don't waste that extra, useless energy. So, nervous energy. So, really a pleasure and honor always to have you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing Fight Week for you. You've been listening to Luke Payson for MMA Fancast with the former Division II National Wrestling NCAA Division II champ, Luke the Martian Martin. Thanks so much for coming on, champ.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me again. Looking forward to the next
Best,
one.
you got it. Best skills to you.
Yep, thank you. See ya.